The dugong, also commonly known as the sea cow, is a slow-moving majestic marine mammal which inhabits the shallow temperate coastal waters from East Africa all the way through to Vanuatu, a geographic range of approximately 128,000 kilometers across 44 countries. These lumbering nomadic grazers have long been the inspiration of folk tales when sailors believed them to be mermaids. They are the only herbivorous marine mammal in the world and play a significant role in the marine ecosystem. Unfortunately, dugongs are now threatened on a worldwide scale and are listed under the IUCN Red List of Threatened Species as being vulnerable to extinction. Dugongs inhabit Australian waters from Shark Bay in Western Australia and across the top end around to Moreton Bay in Queensland, making Australia the most important single largest geographical range for this species, and home to the largest population left in the world. Australia's dugong population is important due to its high level of genetic diversity, which is now lacking elsewhere due to population decline. Dugongs are long-lived creatures with a low reproductive rate. Therefore, it is crucial for mammals with this characteristic to have a high survival rate in order to uphold their population numbers. However, it is becoming more and more difficult for the species to stay abundant as the threats against dugongs are increasing. Data from the last 100 years clearly identifies that there is a steady decline within the population of dugongs, and this decline can be highly attributed to an array of human activities, the top three being dugong entanglement in fishing debris, loss of seagrass, and boating strikes. The incidental entanglement of dugongs in fishing debris is the leading cause of regional population decline. In past years, ropes and materials used in marine practices were created with natural resources, which when weathered would soon disintegrate. However, the 21st century brought about more resilient and durable and often buoyant materials which were made synthetically. Once these new materials entered the marine ecosystem in the form of netting, ropes, and monofilament lines, aquatic organisms such as the dugongs started becoming entangled among them. The extreme difficulty of escaping these materials often causes dugongs to drown, be debilitated, or die from injury and starvation. A dugong's diet consists almost entirely of seagrass, which is a highly complex and valuable habitat for a diverse range of marine species, as well as nurseries for juvenile fish. Seagrasses which filter nutrients from the water column typically grow along shallow coastlines, where light is readily available for photosynthesis and tidal exposure is low. However, the rising depletion of seagrass meadows which is occurring around the world is detrimental to a dugong's health. A global study suggests that approximately 51,000 square kilometers of seagrass meadows have been lost since 1980, the equivalent to 2 football fields per hour. A shocking figure when it's noted that the average adult dugong consumes over 30 kilograms of seagrass per day and are completely reliant upon this source of food. The seagrass reduction is the outcome of large-scale events, natural and unnatural, such as flooding and cyclonic weather, agriculture and its associated effect of eutrophication, and the smothering effect caused by the loose sediment from dredging. The unavailability of consumable seagrass forces these large mammals to migrate elsewhere to other foraging grounds. The paths travelled to these coastal locations by dugongs often cross paths with moving vessels, and the dugongs can be fatally injured by spinning propellers when they surface the water to breathe or when foraging in shallow waters. Strike measurements collected from dugong carcasses in Moreton Bay have been collected, and this data suggests that the majority of boat strikes to dugongs are large recreational and commercial vessels with twin propellers. Dugongs are at most risk in areas where their feeding grounds overlap with popular shallow water recreational areas, particularly around the Moreton Bay region and in Missionary Bay of North Queensland. While the numerous threats against this species have been recognised and conservation efforts introduced, any further deaths will have a severe impact on population viability, with projections estimating that the population is unlikely to increase by more than 5% per year. The sensitive ecological status of these animals globally emphasizes the need for effective management approaches to protect and conserve the dugong species. As Australia is home to a huge proportion of the remaining dugong population, it is therefore globally their most important refuge. Australia is one of multiple countries which are required under several international conventions to actively participate in the global conservation of dugongs. These include the Convention on Biological Diversity, the Convention on the International Trade in Endangered Species of Wild Fauna and Flora, and the Convention of Migratory Species of Wild Animals. In Australia alone, dugongs are protected under numerous sections of legislation. They are listed as a marine and migratory species under the Commonwealth Environment Protection and Biodiversity Conservation Act 1999, as well as being protected by other Commonwealth legislation such as the Great Barrier Reef Marine Park Act 1975. Additionally, the Australian and Queensland governments, together with the Corporation of Agricultural Departments and Researchers, are involved in an initiative called the Reef Water Quality Protection Plan, which is designed to improve the quality of water in the Great Barrier Reef through the minimisation of urban and agricultural runoff entering marine systems. Currently, the extent to which dugong populations are affected by chemical pollutant runoff is unknown. However, other marine mammal species are known to suffer reproductive and immunological abnormalities. Other recovery plans for dugongs have also been implemented. Within Australia, these include the Queensland Environment and Heritage Protection Department, which monitors dugong mortality along the Queensland coast via strain net, the allocation of dugong protection areas which connect significant dugong habitats, and the restriction or banning of gill and mesh netting in these regions to further protect them from incidental catch, the replacement of sharp nets with drum lines to minimise entanglement, as well as the addition of go-slow areas within marine parks to provide some protection from boat strikes. Also enacted is the controversial resolution to cease issuing permits, which previously entitled Indigenous hunting of dugongs within areas of the Great Barrier Reef World Heritage Area, which was a mostly unregulated practice. Protected area initiatives aim to protect dugongs in many range states and are most developed within Australia. Most of the marine protected areas existing outside of Australian waters which have the potential to protect dugongs are paper parks, where laws and regulations exist but are not yet implemented. The challenge for successful conservation of the dugong species is the development of an integrated management scheme involving all stakeholders.
At this day and age, to conserve, we have to balance both sides, the cultural side of it, the traditional law of it, to what the European law of it and preservation of it. We cannot have one above the other. The two must be balanced.
In far north Queensland and the Torres Strait Islands, the Australian government has devoted $5.3 million over 3 years for delivery of a dugong and turtle protection plan under the Reef 2050 Plan and Reef Trust. The Reef 2050 plan addresses the threatening processes that impact on the long-term recovery and survival of these protected migratory species. This dugong and turtle protection plan includes the following 6 central elements. $2 million for a specialised Indigenous Ranger program for strengthened enforcement and compliance and marine conservation in Queensland and the Torres Strait. $2 million for an Australian Crime Commission investigation into the illegal poaching, transportation and trade of turtle and dugong meat in the Great Barrier Reef and Torres Strait. Cooperation between traditional owners and the Great Barrier Reef Marine Park Authority to develop traditional use of marine resource agreements to provide for traditional use and deliver reef protection. The implementation of the Environment Legislation Amendment Act, which amends various sections of the EPBC Act and the Great Barrier Reef Marine Park Act to provide additional protection for turtles and dugongs. The amendments triple the maximum penalties for various criminal offences related to the killing, injuring, taking, trading, keeping or moving of turtles and dugongs under the EPBC Act, and for criminal offences and civil penalty provisions which apply to the taking of or injury to turtles and dugongs where they are a protected species under the Marine Park Act. However, effective implementation of conservation guidelines has been difficult throughout most of the region because of poverty, lack of resources and personnel. The most pressing need is for alternative sustainable livelihoods that address poverty and provide incentives for conservation. As a specialist marine mammal and umbrella species, the continued decline in dugong population will have an overraking effect on other marine species which use seagrass as their habitat. The dugong is often referred to as a cultivation grazer, due to the way in which it feeds. As it shuffles through the seagrass meadows, the sediment of the bed is eroded and covered in leftover organic matter, which makes way for fresh new growth. Many species, such as the endangered green sea turtle, rely on the dugong to cultivate this new growth. Though human impact is the very reason that seagrass, and inevitably the diverse wildlife that it sustains, are slowly declining in abundance, its loss does have adverse effects on the human species as well. Seagrass is greatly responsible for the filtration of nutrients and chemicals out of the water column to improve water quality, the buffering and stabilization of the coastal zone when high energy events occur, as well as providing nursery habitats for species which are commercially important, such as the prawn and shellfish industries. But most importantly, it is the uptake of carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere which makes it one of the most valuable ecosystems on the planet. It is estimated that seagrass meadows sequester 27.4 million tons of carbon each year globally. Dugongs are a species vulnerable to extinction. However, without intervention to seagrass abundance, dugongs face inevitable population decline. Through registered environmental organisations like the Australian Marine Conservation Society, Sea Trust, Reef Check Australia, or Seagrass Watch, you can donate, volunteer, or even join an event which benefits the protection and restoration of our marine ecosystems. And remember that doing your part today will help make a difference for tomorrow.